Namaste. I honour the place in you where pure water resides, the place of love, truth, and bliss. And I recognise when I'm in that place in me and you're in that place in you that we are one. Today, I want to talk about our relationship with water and how bathing will heal humanity. I'm going to talk about water as our essence, it's who we are, and how wellness is our ability to be comfortable between extremes in uncomfortable situations. I'm going to talk about hot springs and how they're the fountains of life, and how bathing is the most critical health issue on the planet. And I'm also going to talk and I want to give you a ritual that you can actually include in your own life that will transform your own health and well-being. And I want to tell you how you can support initiatives to help bathe the world and realise worldwide wellness. Now, Indigenous cultures have always talked about water. And I've met a few times now Grandma Agnes Baker Pilgrim. She's the chairperson of the International Council of 13 Indigenous Grandmothers. And she told me, and she talks a lot about water and says that we are all water babies, that water should be everyone's concern and that without water we all die. She told me that water is precious and we need to give thanks to water. If we look at our language, we can understand that water and wellness and wealth are all connected. So a well is a natural water source. Being well is expressing our true nature. And we all want to be wealthy. Now, I always wanted to be well, and I went into medicine more than 3 decades ago with the aim of having the most healthy and fulfilling life as possible so I could be well myself. I didn't want to help people who were sick be healthy. I wanted to be well. And that led me on this path of studying Western medicine, physiology, psychology, Chinese medicine, electrical computer systems engineering, and studying nutrition and meditation, detoxification. And it's helped me understand wellness and illness from different perspectives, and I want to share some of that with you. So if you look at wellness and illness on a spectrum, we can help to understand it. But actually the best explanation of wellness and illness was given by Swami Satchidananda, who without saying a word just went and circled the I in illness and the we in wellness. So that's a great explanation, but to take it further, you can divide this spectrum, or I call it a vortex, imagine it as a swirling vortex, into 3 areas. Below a certain line you have ill health, and that line is defined by a blood pressure reading, a blood sugar reading, a diagnostic criteria. Above that we have average health, where you're within 2 standard deviations of the mean. You're not necessarily healthy, but you're not complaining. And then above that we have a less well-defined line, which is enhanced health. And that line is less well-defined because it's multidimensional. It's physical, psychological, social. It's harder to do research in that top line because there's not as much hard metrics. Now, Western medicine tries to get people from ill health to average health so they stop complaining. Wellness practices, complementary medicine, moves people up from wherever they are. So it can treat disease, but it also can give you enhanced health. Now, the higher up you go, the greater your flexibility of response, the greater your homeostatic range. So actually the best preventive medicine is to be healthy, because the higher up you go, the further you've got to fall. Also, the higher up you go, you can cope more with life stress. But in the center, if you imagine this as a vortex, in the center is this axis of homeostasis. That's the point of stillness. When you're in homeostasis, it's the point of namaste. It's that still point of meditation, when you're at one with the universe and you don't have to do anything. So in that state, you have a state of bliss, and that's the state of being stress-free. Either side of that is your steady state of your comfort zone. You're not totally in bliss, but you're on the couch and you're comfortable. Either side of that is your adaptational growth zone, where you actually have to actively do something to bring yourself back. And beyond that is the breakdown or panic zone, where you can't survive, or you break down and fall down, or you actually adapt and move higher. Now, stressors, things that cause us stress, tend to push us out towards the edge, towards our breakdown and panic zone. And what I call blissors a lot of wellness practices move us in towards the center, help us find our balance. But right at that very edge is a point, and it's a tipping point. Now, to exist at that edge, it requires your whole being, your mental, physical being to exist. And beyond that, if you go a little bit beyond it, it's like a yoga stretch. A little bit further and you might hurt yourself. You might break down and fall down. But if you visit that point, you might float up and you can expand your range of response. So just visiting the edge of your comfort zone, the extremes of your ability, is actually a really positive thing. But you need to train the mechanisms that bring you back to that center. And what I'm going to suggest to you is at that center is pure water. In fact, we are water. We talk about 70% of our body is water by volume. But if we count the molecules in our body, 99 out of every 100 molecules in your body are water molecules. Just as water is really tiny and biological molecules are huge. So in biochemistry, we study the 1%. We ignore the 99%. In fact, water is an incredible substance. If you think about 99% water, why aren't we a puddle on the floor? And that's because we are made out of a particular kind of structured water. It's called exclusion zone water that happens at interfaces. So all the membranes in your body are lined by this structured water. And if you think about mitochondria, layers of membranes and all the membranes in our body, they're lined by this pure, because exclusion zone water is a pure form of structured water. And in fact, our metabolism makes water. We make about 400 or 500 mils of water every day from cellular respiration. For every molecule of glucose you break down, you create 6 molecules of water. So there literally is a well in our being. And water is still one of the most mysterious substances that known to science. There's about 72 anomalies that we just don't understand about water. But what we do know is that water is extremely rare. Liquid water only exists in this Goldilocks zone, where it's not too hot and not too cold. In fact, water is the second most abundant substance in the universe, but the universe is not very wet. Water only exists on planets in this Goldilocks zone between the hot area close to a sun and the cold area beyond. And if we think about water on Earth, all life bathes in this tiny drop of water. If you consider the Earth as the size of a basketball, then all the liquid water, or all the water on Earth, is the size of a ping pong ball. Yet most of that water is salt water in the oceans. So all the fresh water on Earth would be the size of a small marble. Yet most of that fresh water is locked up in ice caps or in the ground. So all the liquid fresh water on Earth is that tiny little dot. It's the size of a mustard seed. This tiny speck of wetness bathes you and me and all life on Earth. This is all the liquid water in our rivers and oceans, all the liquid fresh water. So water is incredibly rare. And if we look at the trajectory of life on Earth, and this is an amazing diagram. It looks at time rippling out like waves on a pond. It started 4 billion years ago, 4.5 billion years ago, where water came to Earth, and where the hottest water and the coldest water on Earth met was in the very bottom of the oceans, because cold water is dense and it sinks. That met the hottest water on Earth coming out of the geothermal vents, out of hot springs. And there, the primordial soup was formed that gave birth to life. And since then, the evolution of life is the progressive encapsulation of water within living membranes. So the first life were these primitive prokaryotes, simple cells, membrane-bound. Then that evolved to make eukaryotes, complex cells that engulfed prokaryotes. Then complex cells learned to colonize together to make multicellular organisms. And then it learned to do it. We learned sex. And sex is by nature wet. So organisms combined sexually, and there was an explosion of life at the Cambrian period. And then water was progressively encapsulated, first into shells, then into scales. Scales took water throughout the oceans. Then water was encapsulated by skin, which took us onto land, by feathers, which took us into the air, then by fur, mammals, which can live everywhere, air, water, land, and then humans, where we encapsulate ourselves in our technology, and we can go absolutely everywhere and anywhere. So this encapsulation of water is a progressive thing, but it's also we're all connected through this last universal common ancestor. And that engine of life that created the first oxygen, that rusted the oceans and put atmospheric oxygen out there, is still working today. And hot springs are still at the bottom of the ocean. They produce the nutrients that feed phytoplankton that still produce all of our oxygen. So we're still dependent on hot springs for all the oxygen and the global food chain, because that feeds phytoplankton, which provides food for the global food chain. So we're linked to life, and in and on our bodies, we contain all of this life. We have a biome in our gut. We have a biome on our skin. There's a biome in the air that we breathe. There's a biome in our buildings and in our bathing water. And actually, hot springs are the source of the biotech industry. DNA polymerase enzyme that is used for DNA sequencing was found in Yellowstone Park in extremophile bacteria hot springs. And I'm actually using that technology with some of my colleagues to study what we call the bathing biome and study the ecology of water in the world's hot springs, but also in our swimming pools and in our bars, etc. Hot springs also determine human settlement. It's hot springs that dissolve the Earth's minerals and lay down precious metal deposits of gold and silver and nickel and copper. So human settlement, where we go and a gold rush happens, that was determined by hot springs. And perhaps most importantly, hot springs are great to bathe in. And bathing has really dictated human settlement. And if we look at the history of bathing, Europe was colonized by the Romans from one hot spring to another. And hot springs are actually the basis for the world's oldest and actually most sustainable industry. There are 2 hot springs in Japan that have been in continual operation for 1,300 years. These are the oldest place-based businesses on Earth. And one of them's actually been in the same family for 52 generations. Now that's a sustainable business. It's the most sustainable business. But if you look at the hot spring industry, it also has huge potential for continual innovation. And if we think about bathing, it's one of the 4th most common thing we do. We eat, or we breathe, we eat, we drink, and we bathe. And bathing is fun, it's pleasurable, social, multicultural, multi-generational, and it links all diverse cultural, religious, spiritual traditions. Bathing's critical for good health and prevention, basic hygiene, but it's also important to make us human, to make us feel who we are, for our human dignity, for competence, and for comfort. And bathing, which includes sanitary practices for washing hands, the body, the face, after toiling, after menstruation, which includes all personal care, is fundamental for human health, prevention of disease, and controlling disease. Bathing is also profoundly therapeutic. So bathing provides an immersion in water where you can find that bliss point. You can be in water and you can find your homeostatic point and be in total bliss. But bathing can also take us to our extremes. You can do sauna bathing and go to the extreme of hot. You can do ice bathing and go to the extreme of cold. And when that's in your conscious control, you can visit that tipping point and experiment. And we talked about oscillations earlier. You can go from that bliss point to the extreme and back again. You can practice homeostatic resilience. Now, I've been doing a lot of research around bathing, and we have 3 we've just done a research on the Wim Hof method with 3,000 responses. There are 3 surveys still open. There's a global sauna survey, a global hot spring survey, a global retreat survey. I'd love you to go and visit those. Now, the physiological changes with hot and cold bathing, mental resilience and focus. Exercises smooth muscle, open and closes your vasculature, 100,000 kilometers of smooth muscle in your vessels. Reduces pain and inflammation, creates detoxification and elimination, improves metabolism. You actually burn white fat, preferentially when you go into cold. Now, it's true that cold showers can make you happy. But how many people here take a cold shower in the morning? I think it's about 1 in 10. There's 2 types of people. There's cold shower people and hot shower people. Now, I want to... Yeah, you can do both. So I want to give you a little exercise, a little ritual you can do to make cold showers comfortable. And that's the cold water hokey pokey. So you start with a really hot shower. In fact, you do it so hot that you're vasodilated and you're feeling really hot. And then the hardest thing about a cold shower or even cold water immersion is the decision to do it. So then you actually step back, you turn the hot water off, you turn the cold water on, and you just wet your left foot and leg. Then your right foot and leg. Then your left hand and arm and your other hand and arm. And what you've done then, you've vasoconstricted your periphery and you push all this warm blood into your core. So you're actually feeling good. And then you keep breathing calmly and smile to yourself, because that's what it's all about. And then you put your left side in, then your right side in, then your front side in, and you turn yourself around. Keep breathing calmly and smile to yourself. That's what it's all about. And then if you're really up to it, you might take a couple of days or weeks, and then you can put your whole head in. Move your whole head around, stand still, get a drenching, slowly turn yourself around, continue breathing calmly, smile to yourself. That's what it's all about. And then you can freestyle. You do the hokey pokey song, do your groin, do your armpits, do your kidneys. And if you do that, it's about a 1.5 minute dance and song, but you'll feel amazing. You would have started your day singing and dancing and really alive. So I take the cold water hokey pokey challenge, do it for a month, see how you feel. Now, hopefully you all bathe daily, but we take it for granted. But access to bathing is actually one of the most critical health issues on the planet. 1 in 3 people on Earth, 2.4 billion people, don't have access to bathing. 1,000 children die every day from waterborne diseases. Women and girls mainly spend 200 million hours every day just to gather water. Think how that time could be spent. Now, can we bathe the world? Bathing offers global health benefits beyond any pharmaceutical, medical technology, vaccine, or anything else we can actually think of. And I'm going to invite you to go online now. There's a petition to create World Bathing Day to the United Nations. And here we have the bathing industry. Wellness is about bathing. Salus per aqua, spa. If you have a hotel, you're selling a bath and a shower with your rooms. So please, World Bathing Day is June 22nd, but imagine if we had a campaign to add $1 to hotel bills. And there are 20 million hotel rooms in the world. Adding $1 to a hotel bill could create $20 million a day to go to support people who don't bathe. And then I'd like to also invite you to an event in Australia where we're going to literally bathe the world. It's going to be held at the largest hot spring in the remotest location on the driest continent, hosted by the oldest culture on Earth. And that's my time. So let us realise worldwide wellness. The water in me gives thanks to the water in you. Namaste.